Number 1. It was the summer of 2012. I have a late birthday, so I was still 15 when all my friends were 16. They all had jobs for the summer, but nobody would hire me because I was only 15. I started looking for off the books jobs on Craigslist. I found an ad titled "Looking for House Cleaning Services, paying $10 an hour." The ad had two pictures of the house, one outside and one inside. It was a typical middle class. Each Uzi lived in the next town over. The only way to contact him was by email, so I emailed him telling him I was only 15 years old and was willing to clean his house for $10 an hour. He responded in 10 minutes telling me his work schedule and when he would need me to be available. I told him that was okay, and then he asked me if I had means of transportation to get there every day. I didn't even realize that my mom wouldn't be able to drive me every day. Oddly, he offered to give me a lift to and from every single day. He said he worked close, so coming home to give me a ride wouldn't be a problem. I agreed without even asking my mom, so the man asked for my address. I gave it to him and he said he would be over at 8:30 a.m. on Monday to pick me up. On Monday I met him outside. He drove a black '05 Nissan Maxima. He himself had a black beard and a Mets hat on. He didn't seem dressed ready to go to work, but I didn't think much about that. He introduced himself as James and then dropped me off and gave me the key. He told me to just straighten everything out and such. Then he drove off in a hurry. I found it really weird that he trusted me, a 15-year-old he had never met, to be in his house alone. His house wasn't even to mess. All I did was just fold some clothes, wash some dishes, and used a hand vacuum to clean some of this. See, our bets. The only problem, it was extremely hot in the house, even hotter than outside. It seemed all the windows were sealed shut and I didn't want to turn on the AC without permission. This went on for 6 hours before he came back, handed me $60 and dropped me off back home. He seemed extremely nice and I felt I'd lucked out finding that id. This went on for a good 2 weeks and my mom was okay with it. James was actually paying me. Then one Friday night, I woke up feeling really thirsty, so I got up to get some water. I looked out my window and I saw somebody standing there looking into my room. I screamed and my parents came running over, but the person outside took off before they got there. The next time I went in, it was at least 100 outside. I asked James if I could turn on the AC, but he said it was broken. He told me to just take off my clothes if I got hot. I laughed thinking he was joking, but he was serious. I felt really uncomfortable. After that, he dropped me off and I did the same work that I had been doing. It was at least 105 in the house. I had to work shirtless and constantly go outside where it was just a little cooler. The day dragged on, but I just barely made it through the next day. On the way to his house, James told me that he had the day off from work. He told me he would just help me out. I was not happy to hear this. I would rather just be alone in the house. He seemed to slow while he followed me into whatever room I went to clean. I eventually had to go to the bathroom, so I ran upstairs and made sure he wasn't following me. But in the bathroom, I made a shocking discovery. Up in the corner of the room, I found a small camera pointing from out of the wall, just barely visible. I scanned the room for more and sure enough, there was one in the bottom corner as well. I started searching the whole bathroom for more cameras. I checked under the sink, but what I found was much worse. There were 2 huge stacks of VHS tapes, each one with a sticky note attached with someone's name on it. The one on the top was my name. I almost threw up then and there. I had to find a way to get home safely. James then knocked on the door asking if I was all right. I said I wasn't feeling good and asked if he could drive me home. He said okay. I stepped outside and he told Me had to go as well, so he stepped into the bathroom for the first half of the car ride. He didn't say anything to me, and the road he was taking me on wasn't familiar. In fact, I noticed that the direction we were heading in was the complete opposite of my house. So where are we going? I asked. He looked at me and said, "What were you doing in the bathroom?" I started to panic. I didn't answer, so he asked again in a much angrier voice. We were stopped at a traffic light, so I took that opportunity to unlock the door and escape the car. I ran away from sight before calling my mom, crying into the phone, telling her to pick me up. She came over as soon as possible. She immediately reported James, and the police found the tapes under her sink. Some of the tapes contained much worse things than kids just cleaning the house. The scariest thing, some of the kids seen, and the tapes are still missing to this day. He was arrested and tried for child pornography, kidnapping, and some other charges. I'm happy I jumped out of that car because I don't know where he was taking me. Number 2. This happened about 3 months ago. Me and my roommate decided on getting a used couch, so I thought Craigslist would be a great place for used furniture. I scrolled through about 3 pages before finding a black leather couch. It was in really good condition, and it had a really good price, around $200. I told myself this was too good to be true, and man, I could have listened to myself. We arranged a price, and the guy told me to meet him at his place over email. My roommate was out working overtime, so I had to go alone. The address was a little ways out of town. The house was surrounded by trees. You had to go through the drive-through to be able to see it. I got out of my car and knocked on the door. This house was different. It was small and wooden, and it looked pretty eerie. When I knocked the third time, I heard creaks on the wood floor coming from inside. Anyone could tell it was footsteps, but it sounded like they were tiptoeing. Then I heard a faint muffled voice through the door, "Hey, are you the couch guy?" But they sounded pretty rushed, so I responded a yes, I am. He said back, "Okay, come around back, the couch is there." I felt a little weirded out by it, but I brushed it off. When I came around back, I saw something that I won't forget. I saw 4 tall men dressed in black robes with their hands together, and in front of them was a pit with a hatch and chain on it. Then I heard the same voice as say, "Why, where's your friend?" I booked it out of there and frantically shoved the key in my car and started it. I looked out the mirror and saw the front door fly open. I shifted into first and fled out of there. The thing that makes me uneasy to this day is that in the emails I never told him I had a roommate. Number 3. I was about 12 years old. I was looking for some craft storage since I got a lot for Christmas. The ones at the stores were really pricey, so me and my 27-year-old sister looked for some on Craigslist. We found someone offering a huge tote for only $10. That would mean getting a $90 discount, so we checked it out. The person lived relatively close to us, so we gave the guy our email. He emailed us with an NR and asked where we should meet. I said we should meet at Dollar Tree since it was a short walk away. He, to my surprise, asked to meet at my home. I lived in an apartment, so that would be in Conv. And so I said that we lived farther away. He said he could drive, but we said no, so we eventually said it was okay to meet at Dollar Tree, but he could only meet up at 9 p.m. I said that's okay, even though it would be dark by then. He said to meet up today. My sister worked the night shift tonight, so she said I could walk there and back, and to just bring my wagon so I could just put the tote in it. She gave me $10 and I started walking. At 8:30 I arrived just on time, and I saw an old knocked up '06 Kia. I assumed it was him, so I yelled, "Hey, got the tote." He got out of his car and said he left it at home. He asked if I wanted to take a drive to his house. I said I can't because it wasn't okay with my family. He said he would drive me home. And I firmly said no. He said if I came with him that I could get the tote for free. I got a very uneasy feeling. He said, hey, your address is 234 Letter Road. Right, my heart dropped into my stomach. I got freaked out and ran all the way home. I got home and ran upstairs like a demon was chasing me. I OT in my room and locked all the doors and windows. I also covered them with black clothing and such. That night I was shaking like crazy, and then I heard a hefty man coming up the stairs. Almost no one on my floor was up this late, and no hefty man lived there. I heard a voice and I almost fainted. Hey, you still want that tote? It's down in my car. Come help me get it. I almost puked and fainted. I looked through the peephole to see the man's back facing my door. I watched him turn around and I covered the people with a black shirt I had laying around from before the doorknob started to wiggle. ENT under the sink cabinet and was silent as a worm. He started to try to kick the door down, and eventually he did. I felt like I was ready to die. I grabbed an old broom that was sitting in the cabinet. The kicking down of the door woke up my neighbors, who came running in with a baseball that my neighbor whacked the guy in the face with the bat, and the guy fell to the floor. I got out with the broom and gave the man a wimpy whack before he stood up and tried to grab me. I physically jumped down the stairs and ran down the street to my sister's work like I was going to die, and I thought I was Iranti. The nurse's station and started to have a breakdown. I was crying and almost throwing up, and the nurses looked at me like I was just raped or something. I told them that a man was following me and was going to kill me. They got my sister and called the police. It turned out he was a serial rapist. Me and my sister moved and she went away to college. Number 4. When you decide to use Craigslist, make sure you deal local, and if something seems too good to be true, it usually is. I was 20 years old still, driving my grandpa's old Buick that he handed down, and I did. I wanted to drive something cooler and something more age appropriate. Well, I was making decent money and I wanted to buy a Mustang, so I started searching Craigslist, and within a week I found nothing that seemed unbelievable. A 2013 blue Mustang GT, convertible, manual transmission, no accident history, with only 32,000 in, and the shockingly low price of $16,000. I saw the ad was just posted 4 minutes ago, so I knew I had to act fast. I called the number listed, but it just went to voicemail. I called again, and this time on the 4th ring a man picked up the phone. I told him I was interested in the car, and he started laughing and joking about how he had just listed it a few minutes ago. He honestly sounded almost too normal and friendly. He gave me his address, and I told him I'll be over at 6:0 to check it out. After hanging up and realizing this guy sounded normal, I was just so excited to think that I just found such a good deal. I geeps the location. It was a long drive, about an hour to me, far away from the suburbs that I was used to. The GPS said 2 minutes remaining in the drive, and I was kind of confused. The area I was in was very rural and poor. I pulled up to what the GPS said as their house. It was a shitty, rundown old thing. I noticed there was no Mustang anywhere in sight. I felt uncomfortable with even getting out of the car. In fact, I just sat there looking at the house for a good 5 minutes, trying to decide if I should even go and knock on the door. An hour isn't by any means a short drive, but when something seems as sketchy as this seemed, you would understand. I saw the L and S from the window begin to shake, and then the front door opened and a man probably in his 50s came outside. He gave me a wave and a smile. He actually looked somewhat normal. I turned the car off and went out to greet him. I asked him where the car was, and he said it was in the garage. He told me to follow him back inside. I didn't know why He was leading me into his house instead of the garage, but I went anyway. He made sure to shut the door behind me. Even though I was going to myself, I was able to get a good look of his house, and I must say it smelled disgusting, and it didn't have much, if any, nature. He led me down a small flight of stairs into a door. I heard some noises coming from beyond the door. That man just explained that it was his friend working on the car. That seemed weird. I also begged, and to hear creaking coming from upstairs as if someone was walking around. He looked up and said that must be his wife. I found it weird that he had to explain these noises. I wouldn't have thought it was weird otherwise. He finally opened the door and I got a quick glimpse of his garage. It was completely empty. I took a look at the man, and as he stared back at me, I knew it was time to go. I didn't say why anything. I just turned around and ran for the door, but somebody was standing there blocking it. I offered to give them all the money in my wallet to let me go, and then the first guy walked into the room with some sharp metal tool in his hand. I don't know what it was cold, but I fled from the room in the opposite direction of the front door and thankfully found the back door. I fled into the backyard and went around the house to my car. I made it inside and started the engine. I stared at the house one more time. Nobody followed me. I saw the front door open again, and the two men from inside stood behind the storm door and just seemed to stare me down. I gave them the finger and drove off halfway down the road before calling the cops. I stayed nearby until I saw the cops pull up to the house. That two men, or however many people were in that house, were gone. Nobody had actually lived in that house for years. I went home feeling angry and disturbed, but also grateful that I escaped with my life. That night I got a phone call from an unknown number at like 2 in the morning. I didn't answer, and they didn't leave a voicemail. 10 seconds later I got a text from the same number saying, "Look outside your window." I had my blinds down and feared what might be on the other side, but I had a pretty good feeling. I called the cops yet again, letting the person outside know that I was as well. They arrived in a surprising 3 minutes and began to search the whole premises. They found him hiding in my bush outside my window. He was arrested. His name is Tony Schilling. He was in fact the same person I met at the house. My message to all is to not be an idiot while using websites like Craigslist.